The Most and Least Spiritual States in America Ranked, by David Russo. Introduction. Mapping the Soul of America. Welcome, dear listener, to a journey, unlike any other journey, through the spiritual landscape of the United States. This audiobook is an exploration, a map not of roads or rivers, but of the inner life of our nation. Here, we will consider what it means to be spiritual, not merely in the traditional religious sense, but in the broader, richer ways that touch our hearts and communities. Mindfulness, compassion, meditation, connection to nature, service to others, and the simple yet profound practice of being present. Across the 50 states, spirituality wears many faces. In some places, it pulses through centuries-old traditions, shaping daily life and cultural identity. In others, it emerges in modern movements, meditation centers tucked into bustling cities, eco-conscious communities honoring the earth, or grassroots initiatives rekindling human connection. Our task is to explore these dimensions personal, communal, historical, and cultural without judgment, with curiosity and respect. To chart this spiritual terrain, we draw on a variety of sources, surveys of personal practice, state-level indicators of community involvement and volunteerism, observational insights, and the stories of individuals whose spiritual lives illuminate the larger patterns around them. By blending data with human experience, we aim to capture both the measurable and the ineffable aspects of spiritual life. As you listen, I invite you to reflect on your own spiritual journey. Perhaps you'll recognize familiar rhythms, uncover untapped potentials, or find inspiration in stories from other corners of the country. Whether you live in a bustling city, a quiet town, or somewhere in between, the spiritual state of your surroundings is only part of the picture. The deeper adventure lies within. This is not a ranking meant to elevate or diminish, but a lens through which to see the diverse ways Americans cultivate meaning, purpose, and connection. Together, we'll explore the highest peaks, the steady plains, and the hidden valleys of spiritual life across our nation. And along the way, you may discover that the most profound spiritual awakening isn't bound by state lines. It begins inside you. So, take a deep breath, open your mind, and join me as we map the soul of America. Your spiritual journey awaits. Chapter 1. The Spiritual Pulse. Understanding the Landscape. What makes a state truly spiritual? Is it the number of churches, meditation centers, or yoga studios? Or is it something subtler, the sense of care people show for one another, the openness to explore inner life, the willingness to seek connection with something larger than themselves? In this chapter, we begin to understand the heartbeat of American spirituality not as a statistic, but as a living, breathing force present in daily life. Spirituality in the United States has deep and varied roots. In New England, the influence of Puritan ethics still shapes communities, instilling a quiet, reflective approach to faith and morality. In the South, centuries-old traditions of religious devotion foster tight-knit communities, where rituals, music, and shared belief create a collective rhythm of meaning. On the West Coast, a different energy pulses. Mindfulness practices, meditation, and alternative spiritual movements have flourished alongside nature, technology, and innovation. Each region tells a story of how culture, history, and environment shape the way people seek and experience the sacred. To capture the spiritual landscape, we look at multiple dimensions. Personal practice matters. Meditation, prayer, journaling, or simply taking time to pause and reflect. Community involvement matters. Volunteerism, neighborhood rituals, local festivals, and shared acts of kindness. Access to resources matters. Retreats, wellness centers, spiritual mentors, and educational programs. And perhaps most important is openness to diversity, to curiosity, to exploring life's deeper questions with humility and courage. Yet, the spiritual pulse is not uniform. Even within the same state, you might find pockets of vibrant practice, alongside areas where the sacred feels scarce. This is the beauty of the American spiritual landscape. It is dynamic, evolving, and deeply personal. By observing, listening, and reflecting, we begin to see patterns, but we also leave room for surprise, for the unexpected ways people nurture their souls. As you follow along, consider your own spiritual pulse. How do you cultivate connection to yourself, to others, to the world? This chapter is an invitation to pause and observe, to notice the threads of spirituality weaving through everyday life. From this awareness, we begin to understand the larger picture, the patterns, the contrasts, and the richness of spiritual life across the 50 states. Later in this audiobook, we'll also reveal which states rank highest and lowest in spiritual engagement across the country, while remembering that spirituality is personal and thrives everywhere. Chapter 2: The Highest Ranked States, Spiritual Hotspots. As we move into the landscape of America's spiritual hotspots, we begin to see where the pulse of inner life beats strongest. These are the states where mindfulness, compassion, and community intertwine in ways that shape daily life. They are not perfect, but they shine as examples of how spirituality can thrive across diverse settings. Take, for instance, the West Coast, where states like California lead the way with their embrace of meditation centers, yoga studios, and holistic wellness communities. Here, spirituality is often woven into lifestyle morning hikes in misty forests, silent retreats overlooking the ocean, eco-conscious living that honors the natural world. People speak openly about seeking purpose, experimenting with practices from around the globe, and building inclusive spaces where anyone can explore their inner life. In other high-ranking states, volunteerism and community engagement create a living spirituality. Residents dedicate time to local shelters, neighborhood projects, and interfaith initiatives, bringing sacredness into everyday acts of service. Spiritual leaders describe how these small, but consistent practices ripple outward, creating a culture of empathy and care. Interestingly, urban centers and rural towns both contribute to high spiritual rankings, but in different ways. Cities often offer workshops, retreats, and diverse communities where spiritual curiosity is celebrated. Rural areas, by contrast, may cultivate a deep connection to nature, a slower pace, and a focus on family and local traditions. In every case, what unites these states is a willingness to explore, to connect, and to make space for reflection, ritual, and growth. Through stories of individuals, teachers guiding meditation circles, volunteers organizing community festivals, and families nurturing mindful traditions at home, we see patterns emerge. Spiritual life flourishes where openness meets opportunity, where curiosity meets community. As you listen, think about your own surroundings. What practices, what communities, what rhythms of life bring you closer to meaning and connection? These top-ranked states offer inspiration. Yes, but more importantly, they show that spiritual richness is not just a place. It is a practice, a choice, and a way of living. In this chapter, we celebrate those who have cultivated it, offering a glimpse of what is possible anywhere you choose to nurture your soul. Chapter 3: Mid-rank States, Spiritual Steady Grounds. Between the peaks of America's spiritual hotspots and the quieter valleys lie the mid-rank states, places where spirituality is steady, subtle, and often quietly profound. Here, tradition and modern practice coexist, creating a tapestry of faith, mindfulness, and community connection that may not always make headlines, but carries deep meaning in the everyday lives of residents. In these states, you might see families passing down rituals alongside younger generations exploring meditation, yoga, or holistic wellness. Local festivals celebrate both heritage and creativity, offering space for reflection, music, dance, and shared joy. Small towns often become intimate hubs of spiritual community where a volunteer group, a local retreat, or a nature walk can carry the weight of sacred practice. Mid-rank states are also laboratories of spiritual blending. You may find eco-conscious practices rooted in farming communities, meditation circles thriving in university towns, or interfaith collaborations connecting neighbors across faith lines. These areas may lack the widespread recognition of spiritual hubs, but they compensate with authenticity, resilience, and a sense of grounded purpose. The spiritual pulse here is subtle but persistent. Residents often find meaning in service, in daily routines that honor connection and care, and in the simple act of slowing down to observe the rhythms of life. The stories of individuals, teachers mentoring youth, volunteers tending community gardens, Families incorporating mindful habits at home show how spirituality can thrive without grand structures or celebrity gurus. It is, instead, woven into life itself. For listeners, these mid-rank states offer a lesson in balance. Spirituality does not require perfection or extreme devotion. It grows in the spaces where curiosity meets commitment, where community meets personal reflection. By noticing the small yet meaningful practices around you, you can uncover untapped opportunities for growth, even if your own environment feels ordinary. As we continue this journey, consider the ways your own life mirrors these steady grounds. How do daily actions, community ties, and mindful moments create your spiritual landscape? The steady states remind us that spirituality is less about ranking and more about rhythm, the quiet, enduring heartbeat of a life lived with intention. Chapter 4. Low-rank states, opportunities for awakening. Not every state ranks high on conventional measures of spirituality, but that doesn't mean the spirit is absent. In the lower-ranked states, the spiritual landscape may appear sparse at first glance, yet beneath the surface, opportunities for awakening are waiting, often in surprising and profoundly human ways. These are places where challenges cultural focus on materialism, fewer communal spiritual resources, or limited diversity in practice create fertile ground for individual and collective growth. Here, spirituality often emerges as quiet resilience, a teacher leading a meditation group after school, a neighbor organizing a volunteer food drive, or a small community garden cultivated with mindfulness. These acts of intentional living bring sacredness into everyday life. Even when large-scale spiritual institutions are rare, pockets of devotion, curiosity, and service bloom in unexpected corners. In many low-rank states, innovation thrives precisely because formal support is limited. People create their own practices, blending meditation with local traditions, prayer with social action, or reflection with music and art. These grassroots initiatives demonstrate that spirituality is not confined to temples, studios, or retreat centers. It lives wherever people seek meaning, purpose, and connection. The stories from these regions are often the most inspiring. Individuals facing cultural or environmental obstacles are transforming their communities, fostering mindfulness, compassion, and inclusivity in spaces that once seemed barren. Their courage reminds us that spiritual growth is a personal journey, not a state-issued ranking. As you listen, consider your own capacity for awakening, even in places or moments that feel spiritually quiet. Spirituality is not measured by statistics or by comparison. It is cultivated through intention, attention, and action. The low-rank states remind us that every challenge is an invitation, every limitation a chance to explore deeper connection. The lesson is clear. The path to spiritual richness is not bound by geography. No matter where you live, your inner life can flourish. In fact, sometimes the most profound awakenings occur in places where the outer landscape challenges you to look inward, to create, to innovate, and to live with intentional presence. Chapter 5. East Coast Spirituality. Tradition meets modernity. The East Coast of America is a region where history and innovation meet in fascinating ways, and spirituality reflects this dynamic interplay. Here, centuries-old traditions, puritanical roots in Massachusetts, rich Catholic and Protestant heritages in New York, and diverse religious communities across Florida blend with contemporary practices like meditation, yoga, and urban mindfulness movements. Walking through these states is like tracing the layers of a living spiritual tapestry, where the past and present are in constant conversation. In cities like Boston and New York, meditation centers, wellness studios, and inclusive interfaith communities have sprouted alongside historic churches and synagogues. People move seamlessly between ancient rituals and modern explorations of consciousness. Coffee shops double as mindfulness spaces, parks host weekend yoga gatherings, and urban retreats provide quiet sanctuaries amidst the city's hum. Even in the busy metropolitan centers, residents are finding ways to slow down, connect, and nurture their inner lives. Florida offers a slightly different flavor. Its spirituality often reflects both cultural diversity and connection to nature. Coastal meditation retreats, community festivals celebrating faith and creativity, and local initiatives, blending service with reflection, create a spiritual rhythm that is at once grounded and expansive. Here, traditional religious practices meet innovative approaches to wellness and consciousness, proving that spirituality adapts and evolves in response to the needs of each generation. What unites the East Coast is a reverence for history, paired with a willingness to explore. Spiritual leaders and community organizers emphasize that connection, whether to tradition, to the divine, or to one another, is at the heart of all practices. Residents often describe their spiritual lives as a balance between honoring the wisdom of the past and experimenting with practices that expand the mind, heal the body, and open the heart. As you listen, notice the way this region embodies both continuity and change. The East Coast reminds us that spirituality is not static. It evolves as we evolve, shaped by place, history, and the courage to try new paths. And in these states, you see clearly that the sacred can flourish in both ancient halls and modern studios, in quiet reflection and vibrant community alike. Chapter 6, Midwest Spirituality, Heartland Reflections. In the heart of America, the Midwest offers a form of spirituality that is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted in community. States like Minnesota, Michigan, and Ohio may not always make headlines for spiritual innovation, but here, the sacred often lives in daily life, woven into family traditions, acts of service, and a profound connection to the land. The rhythm of Midwestern spirituality is practical, enduring, and resilient, reflecting the values of care, responsibility, and neighborly devotion. In these states, spirituality is often expressed through service. Volunteerism thrives, not as a trend, but as a natural extension of life, neighbors helping neighbors, local initiatives supporting those in need, and communities coming together to nurture both the human and the natural world. Faith and mindfulness may coexist quietly. Prayer circles and meditation groups exist alongside community gardens, local retreats, and seasonal festivals that honor life cycles. Nature is a powerful teacher here. The lakes of Minnesota, the forests of Michigan, the rolling fields of Ohio all provide spaces for reflection, awe, and contemplation. People find the sacred in simple moments, walking a trail at dawn, planting seeds in a community garden, or pausing to watch the sunset over endless plains. In this way, spirituality is not confined to a building or a formal practice. It emerges naturally from engagement with life, with land, and with each other. Families and small communities play a central role. Traditions passed down through generations create continuity, while local innovations, yoga classes in town halls, mindfulness workshops at libraries, eco-conscious initiatives add layers of modern practice. In the Midwest, spirituality is rarely flashy. It is steady, patient, and deeply human. As you listen, notice the beauty of this grounded approach. Spirituality here reminds us that growth is often quiet and cumulative, shaped by everyday actions, simple rituals, and consistent care for others and the world. The Midwest teaches that the sacred is not always grand or visible. It can be found in steady hands, kind words, and the rhythm of life lived with awareness and purpose. Chapter 7, Southern Spirituality, Faith and Community. The American South is a region where spirituality pulses through tradition, music, and the deep bonds of community. States like Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas carry a rich tapestry of faith steeped in centuries-old religious practice, yet open to emerging forms of spiritual exploration. Here, belief is often lived outwardly, expressed through song, storytelling, shared meals, and the warmth of neighborhood gatherings. In the South, faith traditions are more than rituals. They shape daily life, from Sunday services in historic churches to revival meetings and gospel choirs. Spirituality is a communal experience where people come together to affirm meaning, connection, and hope. Music and ritual play central roles, with the soulful strains of hymns or the rhythmic celebration of festivals creating spaces where the sacred is tangible and felt by all. At the same time, Southern spirituality is evolving. Alternative practices, meditation, yoga, mindfulness workshops, and eco-conscious initiatives are finding a place. Alongside established faith traditions, small communities are creating spaces where people can explore inner life in ways that complement, rather than replace, their cultural heritage. Grassroots projects, volunteer networks, and social activism often carry a spiritual dimension, reflecting the belief that service to others is a pathway to connection and purpose. The South demonstrates a remarkable balance between preservation and innovation. The region's deep historical roots provide stability, while openness to new practices ensures that spirituality remains alive, adaptive, and relevant. Individuals and families navigate a rich spiritual landscape, blending devotion, reflection, and active engagement with community and nature. As you listen, imagine the rhythm of life, hear the music, the shared meals, the volunteer efforts, the quiet moments of prayer or meditation under the wide southern sky. Southern spirituality reminds us that connection is central to the sacred, connection to tradition, to community, to the land, and to one another. It teaches that spirituality is lived as much through acts of love and service as it is through contemplation, and that a vibrant spiritual life is nurtured both by honoring the past and by embracing the possibilities of today. Chapter 8: Western Spirituality, Innovation and Exploration. The American West is a land of wide horizons, towering mountains, and endless possibility, and its spiritual landscape reflects this spirit of exploration. States like California, Colorado, and Oregon have become laboratories for alternative spiritual practices, where meditation, New Age movements, eco-spirituality, and holistic wellness flourish alongside traditional faiths. Here, spirituality often feels experimental, adventurous, and deeply personal. In the West, people are drawn to practices that expand consciousness and honor the interconnectedness of all life. Urban meditation centers, wilderness retreats, yoga festivals, and holistic workshops create spaces where curiosity and reflection meet. Nature itself becomes a teacher. Hiking trails, desert canyons, and coastal cliffs offer sacred spaces for contemplation, grounding, and awe. Residents often speak of a spiritual life that is inseparable from the environment, where caring for the earth is a form of inner practice. Communities here are notable for their inclusivity and openness. People from different traditions, backgrounds, and beliefs gather to share practices, learn from one another, and explore what it means to live intentionally. Grassroots spiritual initiatives, community meditation circles, eco-conscious projects, and creative workshops illustrate that the sacred is not confined to formal institutions, but arises wherever curiosity, care, and connection meet. Western spirituality is also about innovation. Traditional rituals coexist with modern experiments in consciousness, healing, and personal growth. Retreats may combine meditation with art, music, or movement. Workshops may integrate science and mysticism. Local festivals may celebrate both mindfulness and environmental stewardship. The region teaches that spirituality is a living, evolving practice, one that adapts to the needs, challenges, and opportunities of the present. As you listen, imagine walking among redwoods, sitting by a mountain lake, or joining a meditation circle in a bustling city. The West reminds us that spirituality can be playful, expansive, and deeply connected to both the inner and outer world. It invites us to explore, experiment, and embrace the unknown, not as a risk, but as an opportunity to expand our hearts, minds, and lives. Chapter 9: Spiritual Trends Across America, Common Threads. As we step back and look at the spiritual landscape of the United States as a whole, patterns begin to emerge, threads that connect communities from coast to coast, city to small town, mountains to plains. Across diverse states, spirituality increasingly blends personal practice, community engagement, and a mindful relationship with the world around us. Meditation and yoga, once niche practices, now appear in classrooms, workplaces, and homes nationwide. Volunteerism and acts of service continue to link people to their communities, reinforcing the idea that giving and connection are central to a meaningful life. Environmental consciousness has also become a spiritual pursuit, as many Americans recognize the sacredness of caring for the earth, seeing nature not just as a resource, but as a source of wonder, reflection, and inspiration. Technology, too, shapes modern spiritual practice. Online meditation platforms, virtual retreats, and social networks allow people to connect, learn, and practice in ways that were unimaginable a generation ago. Yet even with these innovations, the underlying human impulses remain the same: the desire to understand, to belong, and to grow. Demographics and cultural shifts further shape spiritual trends. Younger generations often blend traditions, creating hybrid practices that combine mindfulness, music, nature, and service. Interfaith and cross-cultural initiatives encourage inclusivity and dialogue. Even in states with lower rankings, individuals are exploring spirituality creatively, demonstrating that meaningful practice transcends geography. The common thread across all these trends is simple but profound. Spirituality thrives where intention meets action. It is cultivated through daily habits, moments of reflection, engagement with others, and attention to the natural world. Across America, whether through meditation, volunteering, prayer, or community rituals, people are finding ways to nurture the inner life while connecting outwardly. As you listen, notice how these patterns resonate with your own life. What practices, communities, or experiences help you feel grounded, connected, and alive? The story of American spirituality is not just about states or rankings. It is about the choices we make every day to honor the sacred, in ourselves, in others, and in the world around us. Chapter 10. How to Find Your Spiritual State. As we reach this part of our journey, it's important to remember that the rankings we've explored are not a judgment, they are a mirror, a way to observe patterns, and a tool to reflect on your own spiritual life. Your spiritual state is not determined by geography, wealth, or the number of meditation centers nearby. It is shaped by your choices, your awareness, and the practices you cultivate daily. Start by looking inward. Ask yourself, how often do I pause to reflect, breathe, or simply notice the present moment? How do I nurture compassion for myself, for others, for the world around me? These small acts of attention are the foundation of spiritual growth. Meditation, journaling, mindful walking, or prayer can serve as gateways to deeper awareness, helping you tune into the rhythm of your own soul. Next, consider connection. Spirituality thrives in relationship with community, with nature, and with a larger sense of purpose. Volunteer, join a local group, or participate in rituals or celebrations that resonate with you. Even small acts of service, a kind word, helping a neighbor, caring for the environment, can expand your spiritual presence and strengthen your connection to the world. Remember, your spiritual journey does not require relocation or grand gestures. You can cultivate meaning wherever you are. Geography may influence opportunity, but it cannot define your inner growth. The most transformative experiences often arise from intention, curiosity, and consistent effort, rather than from external conditions. Finally, embrace experimentation. Explore different practices, traditions, or philosophies that speak to you. Some may resonate immediately, others gradually. The key is openness to yourself, to others, and to the many ways the sacred can appear in everyday life. As you reflect on your spiritual state, know this: every day is a chance to awaken, deepen, and expand. Your journey is uniquely yours, shaped by your awareness, actions, and heart. The states we've explored provide insight and inspiration, but your inner life is the true measure of spirituality. No matter where you live, your spiritual path is limitless, and the possibilities are endless. Chapter 10.5. Every State Awakens. Spiritual growth across America. As we reach the closing chapters of our journey, it is worth remembering something important. Every state in America carries the seeds of spiritual growth. While rankings and patterns may highlight certain regions, the truth is far more inspiring. Across the nation, from coastal cities to rural plains, people are rediscovering mindfulness, compassion, and community in ways that are reshaping their spiritual landscapes. In Alabama, community faith traditions and grassroots volunteer work continue to deepen connections between neighbors. In Alaska, the vast wilderness inspires reflection, resilience, and a powerful spiritual bond with nature. Arizona has become a center for spiritual retreats and desert meditation experiences, drawing seekers from around the world. Arkansas is seeing renewed interest in community service and nature-centered reflection through its parks and rural communities. In California, innovation in mindfulness, yoga, and holistic wellness continues to influence spiritual movements nationwide. Colorado blends outdoor adventure with mindfulness practices, where mountains and meditation often meet. Connecticut shows a quiet resurgence of contemplative practices through community groups and local retreats. Delaware demonstrates the power of close-knit communities, where volunteerism and neighborly care foster spiritual connection. In Florida, diverse cultures create a vibrant mix of traditions, from meditation communities to long-standing religious celebrations. Georgia continues to blend rich faith traditions with growing interest in mindfulness and wellness practices. Hawaii offers a deeply rooted spiritual culture connected to nature, ancestry, and the rhythms of island life. Idaho is witnessing a rise in nature-based spirituality, where reflection and outdoor exploration go hand in hand. Illinois, particularly around its urban centers, is expanding access to meditation, yoga, and interfaith dialogue. Indiana strengthens spirituality through community initiatives, local service organizations, and family traditions. In Iowa, spiritual life often grows through small-town connections and agricultural communities deeply tied to the land. Kansas reflects a spirituality grounded in resilience, service, and quiet reflection across its plains. Kentucky blends heritage, music, and faith traditions that continue to inspire both community gatherings and personal reflection. Louisiana carries a rich spiritual tapestry where music, culture, and faith traditions create powerful communal experiences. Maine finds its spiritual inspiration in rugged coastlines, quiet forests, and a culture that values contemplation. Maryland benefits from diverse spiritual communities and interfaith initiatives across its cities and suburbs. Massachusetts continues to evolve spiritually through academic exploration, meditation communities, and historic faith traditions. Michigan shows a strong rise in community-based wellness programs and spiritual gatherings centered on service. Minnesota blends mindfulness, environmental awareness, and strong community networks to nurture spiritual well-being. Mississippi maintains deep faith traditions while younger generations explore new expressions of spirituality. Missouri is seeing growth in meditation groups, volunteer networks, and spiritual education initiatives. Montana offers expansive landscapes that encourage reflection, solitude, and connection with the natural world. Nebraska demonstrates how quiet acts of service and family traditions can sustain deep spiritual values. Nevada, beyond its bright lights, is experiencing a growing interest in wellness retreats and mindfulness practices. New Hampshire nurtures spiritual reflection through nature, small communities, and a culture of independence. New Jersey benefits from cultural diversity that brings many spiritual traditions into conversation. New Mexico has long been a spiritual crossroads, blending indigenous traditions, art, nature, and contemplative practices. New York continues to be a hub for spiritual exploration, where ancient traditions and modern mindfulness meet. North Carolina balances strong faith traditions with an increasing openness to meditation and wellness culture. North Dakota reflects spiritual strength through tight-knit communities and connection to the land. Ohio nurtures spirituality through service organizations, faith communities, and growing mindfulness movements. Oklahoma blends native traditions, faith communities, and modern spiritual exploration. Oregon stands out for environmental spirituality and progressive mindfulness communities. Pennsylvania carries a rich heritage of faith traditions alongside emerging contemplative practices. Rhode Island demonstrates how small communities can foster strong spiritual connections and cultural dialogue. South Carolina continues to celebrate spirituality through faith, music, and community gatherings. South Dakota draws spiritual depth from indigenous traditions and the powerful presence of the natural world. Tennessee combines music, faith, and growing wellness movements into a vibrant spiritual culture. Texas reflects both strong traditional faith communities and rapidly growing meditation and mindfulness practices. Utah illustrates how strong religious heritage can coexist with expanding curiosity about diverse spiritual paths. Vermont emphasizes simplicity, nature, and mindfulness as core elements of spiritual life. Virginia blends historical faith traditions with modern spiritual exploration. Washington nurtures mindfulness, environmental awareness, and progressive spiritual communities. West Virginia shows how resilience, community care, and connection to the land cultivate spiritual strength. Wisconsin grows spiritually through family traditions, nature appreciation, and local volunteerism. And in Wyoming, the vast open landscapes inspire reflection, humility, and a profound sense of connection to something larger than oneself. Across all 50 states, one truth becomes clear. Spirituality is not confined to any single place. It rises wherever people pause to reflect, reach out in kindness, care for their communities, and nurture the deeper dimensions of life. Every state is awakening in its own way, and every individual contributes to that awakening. Final rankings, a snapshot of America's spiritual landscape. Before we close our journey, it's helpful to take a brief look at how states compare in terms of volunteerism, mindfulness practices, community engagement, and openness to spiritual exploration. Rather than a dramatic countdown, these rankings are general groupings that reflect broad cultural patterns rather than strict judgments. They are meant to illuminate trends, not to define the spiritual value of any individual or community. Among the states that consistently appear most spiritually active are Vermont, Oregon, Colorado, Hawaii, Minnesota, California, Washington. These states stand out for their strong cultures of mindfulness, environmental awareness, and community participation. Residents often embrace both traditional and modern spiritual practices, creating spaces for reflection, connection, and personal growth. States that fall toward the middle of the spiritual spectrum include Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Virginia, Maryland, Arizona, North Carolina, New York. Here, spirituality often blends faith traditions with mindfulness, wellness practices, and service initiatives. Communities are evolving, balancing history with curiosity and openness to new practices. States that rank lower on these particular indicators include Nevada, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, West Virginia. In these states, fewer formal resources or community-wide practices may exist, yet individuals continue to cultivate mindfulness, compassion, and purpose in unique and meaningful ways. Spiritual growth is alive everywhere, even where the landscape may seem quieter. It is important to remember, these rankings describe trends at the state level. They do not measure the depth of any individual's spiritual life. Spirituality is personal, evolving, and shaped by intention, daily practice, and connection. No matter where you live, your inner journey is unique, meaningful, and limitless. Conclusion: the spiritual journey beyond states. As our journey across America's spiritual landscape comes to a close, it's important to step back and remember the central truth. Spirituality is personal, evolving, and limitless. The rankings, the hotspots, the quiet valleys, they are all a lens, a way to explore patterns and possibilities. But they are not rules, and they are not the measure of your own inner life. Every state, every community, every individual has beauty, potential, and spiritual richness waiting to be discovered. What matters most is not where you live, but how you engage with your own soul. Spirituality grows in the moments we pause, in the acts of kindness we extend, in the awareness we bring to the world and to ourselves. It thrives in connection to nature, to community, to purpose, and to the divine spark within. It flourishes not through comparison, but through intention, reflection, and action. The stories we've explored of meditation circles in bustling cities, volunteers building community gardens, families blending tradition with modern mindfulness, and individuals creating sacred practices in unexpected places all remind us that spiritual life is resilient and adaptable. Challenges, quiet landscapes, or cultural obstacles do not limit awakening. They often invite it. As you close this audiobook, take a moment to reflect on your own spiritual journey. What practices, rituals, or connections nurture your heart? Where do you feel presence, awe, or meaning in your life? And how can you expand that sense of sacredness each day? Wherever you are, no matter where you live, no matter the external circumstances. Your spiritual journey is yours to shape. It is a path without boundaries, a practice without limits, and a discovery that deepens with every breath. Listen, reflect, act, and open your heart, because your capacity for connection, compassion, and growth is infinite. And so, let us part with this truth. Your spiritual journey is not confined to maps or rankings. It begins inside you, unfolds in your daily life, and stretches outward in ways both profound and surprising. No matter where you are, the sacred is waiting, and your journey is limitless.